The night was quiet, except for the soft hum of expensive engines in the Millionaire's driveway. A cold breeze swept through the vast estate, carrying with it a sense of something off. Darnell, the security guard, had worked there for years, watching, listening, and keeping things in order. But tonight, his instincts were screaming at him. Something wasn't right. He stood by the front gate, arms crossed, eyes sharp as ever. Over the years, he had seen people come and go, business partners, models, so-called friends. But there was one man in particular who had been showing up way too often. Smooth talker, big smile, always laughing, always charming, too perfect. And if there was one thing Darnell had learned from years of working security, it was this. When someone seems too good to be true, they usually are. Inside the grand mansion, Ethan Pierce, the young millionaire who had built his empire from the ground up, was pouring himself a drink. His penthouse, his cars, his lifestyle, it was the kind most people could only dream of. But despite all that, he prided himself on being a good judge of character. He thought he could tell who was real and who was fake. "Yo, Darnell," Ethan called, waving his guard inside. Darnell stepped in, the scent of expensive cologne and fresh leather filling his nose. He had seen Ethan at his highest, and occasionally at his lowest. Tonight, he was about to test just how much Ethan really trusted him. "I gotta say something," Darnell said, voice steady but firm. "You're a smart man, Ethan. But that friend of yours, Marcus, you might want to watch your back." Ethan let out a short laugh. "Marcus? Come on, man. He's been with me since college. Why would I need to watch my back?" Darnell didn't smile. "Because I've seen his type before. I've worked security long enough to know when someone's got bad intentions. He's not here for you, man. He's here for what you have." Ethan leaned back against the marble counter, swirling his drink. "You really think Marcus would betray me?" Darnell held his gaze. "I don't think. I know." For a moment, the two men stood there, the weight of the conversation hanging heavy in the air. Ethan respected Darnell. He always had. But this was a tough pill to swallow. "Look, I appreciate you looking out for me," Ethan said finally. "But Marcus is my boy. He's been with me through everything. I don't think he'd do me like that." Darnell sighed. He had done his part. He had warned him. That was all he could do. "All right," he said, nodding. "Just be careful." With that, he turned and walked back toward the front gate, leaving Ethan to his thoughts. The next day, something strange happened. A luxury car, a brand new Rolls-Royce Phantom, pulled up to the house. The kind of car that only a handful of people could afford. The kind of car that didn't just show up out of nowhere. Ethan stood by the window, watching as Marcus stepped out, a smug grin on his face. He held up a key fob and tossed it in the air like it was nothing. "Bro, check this out," Marcus called out, laughing. "Guess who just got upgraded?" Ethan's stomach twisted. He knew Marcus didn't have that kind of money. Not legally, anyway. And suddenly, Darnell's warning didn't seem so crazy anymore. Ethan forced a smile as Marcus walked up the driveway, spinning the key fob between his fingers like a prize. The Rolls-Royce behind him gleamed under the sunlight, its polished surface reflecting the lavish world they lived in. Ethan had seen Marcus with nice things before, but this was on another level, and something about it didn't sit right. "Damn, bro," Ethan said, nodding at the car. "That's a serious upgrade. When did this happen?" Marcus smirked, shrugging like it was no big deal. "You know how it is, man. Right place, right time. Just made a little move, and boom, blessing came through." Ethan chuckled, but his mind was working fast. He had known Marcus for years. He knew how he spent money, what kind of deals he made. And as far as he was aware, Marcus wasn't sitting on the kind of cash that could drop on a brand new Rolls without breaking a sweat. From the corner of his eye, he noticed Darnell watching from his usual post near the gate. The security guard's face was unreadable, but Ethan could feel the weight of his earlier warning pressing down on him. "You made a move?" Ethan asked, keeping his tone casual. "What kind of move?" Marcus took a deep breath and glanced around like he was making sure no one else was listening. Then he stepped in closer. "All right, between me and you, I got connected with some real high-level players, man. People who know how to move money fast." Ethan's jaw tightened. He wasn't a fool. He had been around enough wealthy circles to know what that usually meant. Marcus patted him on the shoulder. "Look, bro, I know what you're thinking, but this is different. It's not what you think. It's just opportunity. And trust me, I got us covered." Ethan pulled back. Slightly. "Us?" Marcus grinned. "Come on, man. You think I'd level up like this and leave you behind? We started together, we finished together. You already got money, but I'm talking about real wealth. The kind that makes sure your kids' kids are set. For life." Ethan didn't answer right away. He was processing everything, trying to figure out if Marcus was being reckless or if he had truly found something legitimate. Either way, something wasn't adding up. Darnell, still watching, made his way toward them. He wasn't the kind of guy to stick his nose where it didn't belong, but right now, it felt necessary. "Nice car," he said, nodding at Marcus. "What's the occasion?" Marcus laughed. "Man, y'all act like I never had money before." Darnell didn't smile. He just studied Marcus the way a man who had seen too much does. "Nah, it's not that. I just like knowing who's walking in and out of my boss's life. Makes my job easier." Marcus's grin faded for a second, just a flicker, but Ethan caught it. He realized something in that moment. Darnell wasn't just suspicious. He knew. Ethan turned back to Marcus, his stomach tightening. "So, what exactly do these high-level players do?" Marcus hesitated, just for a second. But in that second, Ethan saw everything he needed to see. "Look, man, if you don't want to be part of it..." "Cool," Marcus said, shifting his weight. "I just thought you'd want to win with me, but hey, do your thing." That was Marcus's trick. Make it sound like he was doing you a favor, make you feel like you were the one missing out. Ethan had fallen for that before, but now? Now he was older, smarter, and, thanks to Darnell, more cautious. He let out a slow breath. "Nah, I'm good. But I hope you know what you're doing." Marcus forced a laugh, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Yeah, of course, bro, you know me." And that was the problem. Ethan did know him. He knew Marcus couldn't resist a shortcut, couldn't turn down fast money, even when it came with danger. Darnell watched as Marcus got back into the Rolls-Royce and sped off down the driveway. He waited until the taillights disappeared before turning to Ethan. "See what I mean now?" he asked. Ethan rubbed his temple. Yeah, I do." Darnell nodded. "You ever notice how people change when they think they don't need you anymore?" Ethan didn't answer, but he knew exactly what Darnell meant. For years, Marcus had been his right-hand man. But now, Marcus had found something, or someone else. And if there was one thing Ethan had learned in business, it was this. When money comes fast, so do the problems. He had a bad feeling. A real bad feeling. And if Marcus was caught up in something dangerous, Ethan knew it was only a matter of time before that danger came knocking on his own door. A few days passed, but the uneasy feeling never left Ethan. He tried to brush it off, telling himself that Marcus was just chasing fast money like he always did. But something about that Rolls-Royce, about the way Marcus had spoken, still gnawed at him. Then, one evening, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, Ethan's phone buzzed. A call from an unknown number. He almost ignored it, but instinct told him to pick up. "Ethan, A deep voice said on the other end. "Your boy Marcus? He's in trouble." Ethan's heart dropped. "Who is this?" The voice chuckled. "Let's just say I'm someone who doesn't like being played. And right now, Marcus owes me a lot of money. Problem is, he disappeared. And since you two are close, I figured you might know where he's hiding." Ethan clenched his jaw. "I don't know anything about that." The voice turned sharp. "That's a shame. Because if I don't get my money, I'll start looking for it in other places. And you're the next best thing." The call ended. Ethan stared at his phone, his pulse pounding. Darnell, who had been standing nearby, immediately noticed the shift in Ethan's face. "What's wrong?" Ethan exhaled sharply. "Marcus, he's in deep, and now they're looking at me to clean up his mess." Darnell didn't even hesitate. "Where is he?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted. But he had a pretty good idea. They drove through the city, past high-rise buildings and neon-lit streets, until they reached a small, run-down motel on the outskirts of town. Ethan knew Marcus well enough to know that when things went bad, he always ran somewhere quiet, somewhere off the radar. Ethan knocked on the door of room 203. No answer. He knocked again, harder this time. Finally, the door cracked open, and there stood Marcus. His once proud posture was gone, replaced with tired eyes and slumped shoulders. Ethan pushed inside. "What the hell did you do?" Marcus ran a hand over his face. "I was trying to flip it, bro. Just one big move and we'd be set for life. But things got complicated." Ethan let out a bitter laugh. "Complicated? You have people threatening me over your mess. How much do you owe them?" Marcus hesitated. "Marcus, $500,000, he finally admitted. Ethan shut his eyes, forcing himself to stay calm. "Do you have it?" Marcus shook his head. "I was supposed to double it, but I'd lost everything." Silence filled the room. Darnell, standing by the door, finally spoke. "They don't care about your excuses. They just want their money." Marcus collapsed onto the bed, his hands covering his face. "I messed up, man." Ethan sighed, rubbing his temples. He could walk away. Leave Marcus to deal with the consequences of his choices. But despite everything, despite the lies, the greed, and the recklessness, Marcus was still the guy who had been there since day one. Ethan pulled out his phone and made a call, not to negotiate, not to beg, but to end this once and for all. A few hours later, they met in an empty parking lot. Ethan stood firm as a black SUV rolled up. A tall man stepped out, his presence alone enough to make most people nervous. "You got my money?" the man asked. Ethan didn't flinch. "No, but I have something better, an offer." The man raised an eyebrow. "I own multiple businesses, real estate, investments. I can triple what Marcus lost, but not in cash, in deals, legit ones. Ones that don't leave either of us in a bad position." The man studied him for a long moment, then finally smirked. "You've got guts, kid. All right, I'm listening." An hour later, the deal was done. The debt was cleared, not with money, but with leverage. Ethan had negotiated a way out, something Marcus never could have done on his own. As they drove back, Marcus turned to Ethan. "You didn't have to do that." Ethan kept his eyes on the road. "Yeah, I did, but don't ever put me in that position again." Marcus nodded, understanding what wasn't being said. Some lines couldn't be crossed twice. When they pulled up to the house, Darnell leaned against the front gate, arms crossed. "Handled?" Ethan nodded. Darnell exhaled. "Told you he wasn't good for you." Ethan gave a small smile. "Yeah, but sometimes people need one last chance." Darnell shook his head, but there was a trace of respect in his eyes. "Just don't let him take you down with him." Ethan glanced over at Marcus, who stood quietly by the car, a man who had come dangerously close to losing everything. Maybe he'd change. Maybe he wouldn't. But Ethan knew one thing for sure. He would never let himself get caught in someone else's storm again. And as the city lights flickered in the distance, he realized something else. Darnell had seen the truth from the start. Not because he was cynical, but because he understood people in a way money never could. And this time, Ethan had finally listened.